When Terry accused me of infidelity during a business trip and then demanded a divorce, his voice thundering through the phone, I should have been shaken. Yet I remained unfazed. I knew this was just another one of his dramatic outbursts. Even as I felt his emotions tremble from afar, I was well prepared. His belief that I would be deceived by his theatrical act was almost laughable. As his baseless accusations continued to clash against my firm resolve, I found myself oscillating between irritation and mild amusement. But in this confrontation, I began to feel empowered. This wasn't just a minor disagreement, it was a defining moment for me. Internally, I smirked at his pathetic attempt to sway me. Then, in a pivotal flash of insight, I realized it was my turn to make a move. I'm Megan, 30 years old, and I've been consistently employed at a college bookstore since I graduated from junior college at 21. In contrast, Terry, who is 3 years my senior, has had a shaky career path. When we first met 2 years ago, he was frequently job hopping or unemployed. His marriage proposal came quickly, but I insisted on a precondition. He needed a stable job. I was determined not to start a marriage without securing our financial future. Okay, but there's a condition, I stated firmly, noticing his worried expression. You need to find a stable job. Otherwise, marriage is off the table. We need to consider our future. He tried to dismiss it with a nonchalant comment. Don't worry, you're working, so there's no rush, right? But my parents would have concerns if I got married without a stable job, Terry admitted after I laid down the condition. He promised to find a job before we would consider marriage seriously. With a newfound sense of responsibility, he began his job hunt and eventually landed an office role at a construction company. This allowed us to go ahead with our wedding plans. At the time, I viewed Terry as somewhat reckless with finances and his career approach, but I believed we could complement each other. I hoped to steer him toward financial prudence while he could bolster my strengths. Little did I know, however, that our real challenges were just on the horizon. About a year into our marriage, as we started looking into buying a house, Terry dropped a bombshell. I might not qualify for a mortgage, he said offhandedly one day. I was stunned. What do you mean? I demanded more details. He explained, since I haven't been in my job for very long, I might need a guarantor for the mortgage. The only person who could help is my dad, but he's swamped with his gambling debts. Why didn't you tell me this sooner? I was flabbergasted, especially since we were already sitting with the contract and the real estate agent right there. Terry, ever unperturbed, simply suggested, if we put the house in your name, it should be okay, right? You've been at your job for a long time, so securing the loan won't be a problem. We can both contribute to the mortgage payments. It's just a technicality. That's not the point, I argued, feeling the frustration simmer. Why didn't you bring this up earlier? This affects me too, and I'm not even prepared with the necessary paperwork. Although he apologized, his remorse seemed shallow, lacking genuine depth. Despite my desire to press the issue further, the contract was already on the table, pushing us into a corner. With the real estate agent present, I chose not to escalate the situation further. Reluctantly, I hurriedly gathered the necessary documents, like my income statement needed for the loan application, and in a spur-of-the-moment decision, finalized the purchase of the house under my name. Doubts gnawed at me. Could I truly see a future with this man? Perhaps I should have firmly stated that we wouldn't proceed instead of rushing to prepare the paperwork. My anxiety only deepened with the potential problem of my father-in-law's financial instability. Just the other day, I was talking to Dad. Terry started one evening, his voice casual. He mentioned he might lose his house because of the debts I told you about, so he's thinking about moving in with us. Is that okay with you? Why would you even consider that without discussing it first? I responded instantly, frustration rising. Terry just shrugged. Well, he's in trouble and my brother is working abroad and can't help. I'm the only one Dad can turn to. Maybe we could let him stay with us temporarily, at least until he sorts out his situation. But having him live with us permanently? That's a huge decision. Terry frowned. You just don't want him to stay, do you? If he moves in, we could split the living expenses. You're always talking about money. The money that you never seem to contribute? I retorted sharply. You promised we'd split the mortgage, but I'm the only one paying. You haven't contributed at all. In a marriage, finances are supposed to be shared. It's not just my money, it's supposed to be ours. It's only coming out of my account because the house is in my name. You're being incredibly self-centered. My voice was thick with exasperation, but Terry muttered under his breath, I hate discussing money, before storming out of the room. Such disputes became a regular occurrence in our home. Every time Terry would dismiss my concerns, leaving unresolved tensions to simmer. Despite the unresolved tensions between us, Terry didn't ignore his family's situation entirely. As part of his job in construction site administration, which often entailed dealing with real estate contracts, he actively sought advice from a particular agency on how to secure the best deal for selling his family's home, including all the necessary procedures. I often caught snippets of these discussions, and although they were a constant reminder of our issues, it was somewhat comforting to know he was taking action. However, the thought of my in-laws possibly moving in with us after the sale of their home loomed over me like a dark cloud. Terry began attending meetings with real estate agents and even included his parents, but without my involvement. His weekends started to fill up with trips away from home, and eventually he left for a prolonged business trip to oversee a construction site far away. At the time, I didn't fully grasp it, but the seeds of our ongoing power struggle had been planted. A few days after Terry left, I decided to indulge myself with a little shopping and a cup of tea. At the cafe, a familiar face greeted me, someone who brought back memories of past interactions at our home. It was Bruce, a young employee from the real estate company Terry frequently consulted. Terry had mentioned before that Bruce was relatively new to the company, having been there less than a year. Ah, yes, I remember you. You visited our house before, right? I recalled. Yes, I apologize for dropping by unannounced that time and even joining for a meal, Bruce replied, seeming genuinely apologetic. There's no need to worry, I should have been more welcoming, I responded, reflecting on the past interaction. We ended up sharing tea together. Bruce was affable and, despite his youth, seemed more level-headed than Terry. As we chatted, we discovered some common ground and our conversation flowed easily. Eventually, we bid each other farewell, each going our separate ways but feeling a bit more connected than before. I never imagined that a simple meeting for tea could later be misconstrued into a devastating accusation of infidelity. Yet, that's exactly what happened when Terry confronted me upon his return. You've been cheating on me while I was away, haven't you? We're getting a divorce. Give the house to my parents and leave immediately, Terry declared abruptly. His words struck me like a force, blindsiding me at a moment when I was least prepared. I stood there reeling as I considered whether the rumors I had heard were true, rumors that Terry had been spreading lies, crafting a narrative of my supposed infidelity to rationalize his desire for a divorce. The supposed other man in this fabricated story was Bruce, the very person Terry had accused me of having an affair with. Bruce showed up at my doorstep the day after our innocuous tea meeting. I apologize for the unexpected visit yesterday. Terry asked me to reach out to you, Bruce admitted as he stood in my doorway. Confused but curious, I invited him in, eager to understand the full story. What Bruce revealed next left me utterly stunned. Terry had concocted a plan to frame me for infidelity as part of his strategy to secure a divorce. Bruce was unwillingly pulled into this scheme, tasked with fabricating evidence to support Terry's plot. Terry's deceit was driven by two primary motives. First, He was anxious about losing his parents' home due to their financial troubles and viewed living with his parents as an easy out. My resistance to this idea had pushed him to concoct a scheme to oust me and claim the house for himself. Secondly, Terry had been carrying on an affair of his own. He spent many weekends with his mistress under the guise of discussing issues with my parents-in-law. His growing infatuation with her had led him to see me, his wife, as an obstacle. By framing me for infidelity, he aimed to remove me from the picture and secure the house for his ends. Despite my initial belief that Terry lacked shrewdness, the complexity and maliciousness of his scheme were shockingly devious. As I expressed my disgust, Bruce apologized for his part in the plot. However, I had no intention of letting Terry succeed with his deceitful plans. I pretended to cooperate while secretly strategizing a countermove. With Bruce's insights into real estate, he suggested several tactics. Ultimately, he proposed a bold plan: sell the house while Terry was away. When Terry returned and was stunned by the news of the sale, I was ready with my confrontation. "I know everything, Terry. Bruce recorded all your schemes, including your attempts to frame me for cheating with him. If we go through with this divorce, I can seek alimony and take you to court," I declared, savoring the shock on his face. "Why?" he stammered, bewildered. But I wasn't done yet. I had one more revelation. "You might not have realized, but Bruce isn't just any new employee. He's the son of the company's CEO," I pointed out, astonished at Terry's ignorance. "Didn't you notice Bruce shares the same last name as the CEO? How did that escape your notice?" My frustration was palpable. Terry tried to brush it off. "Well, Bruce's last name isn't exactly uncommon. Are you serious right now?" I couldn't believe his lack of awareness. "Yes, I'm serious," Terry replied, his astonishment clear. It slowly dawned on him that Bruce's involvement meant his company, a crucial client that handled much of his family's real estate dealings, was now intimately aware of his deceit. If this news reached the CEO, Terry would be in serious trouble. Indeed, Bruce had likely already informed his father of the entire situation. "Look, fine," Terry began, as he realized the precariousness of his position. "I'll check it out, but if you're lying, I'll figure it out," Terry said, his voice strained before abruptly hanging up. He soon realized the full impact of his schemes when the real estate company, owned by Bruce's father, decided to cut all business ties with him, refusing any further dealings or advice on his family property. With the sale of my house already finalized, Terry had no choice but to return to his family home after his business trip. Fortunately, Bruce had helped me find an affordable apartment, easing my transition as I began the divorce proceedings. Despite this, Terry continued to reach out, his voice desperate over the phone. "I'm sorry, Megan. Please forgive me," he pleaded. "It's too late for apologies," I replied firmly. "You tried to manipulate me by using someone else. Why should I believe anything you say now?" "Don't say that. After our divorce, you can be with that other woman, right?" "That's what you wanted, isn't it?" he retorted, trying to shift the blame. "Yeah, she had someone else she liked and dumped me. What a sorry tale. But just because of that, don't expect me to change my mind and come running back to you," I muttered, ending the call with a heavy sigh. Despite my efforts to keep my new address from him, Terry's calls were incessant. Each time he pleaded, "Please don't leave me. I'll change. I'll be a better husband." But I was tired of his empty promises. Once the divorce was finalized, I planned to delete his number, block him on WhatsApp, and cut off all contact completely. To complicate matters, even my mother-in-law reached out, her voice pleading, "Please, Megan, we'd be lost without you. It's not just about the house, right?" "But there's no house left," I reminded her sharply. "We're not that heartless. Come back and you'll understand," she implored. "You wanted the money, didn't you?" I shot back, my frustration evident. "That's not true. You're being unfair. You tried to coerce me into living with you," she tried to reason, but I was beyond listening. Their motives had been clear, and I was determined not to fall back into their manipulative grasp. When I declined to comply, Terry turned to deception to gain an advantage during our divorce proceedings. I simply cannot place my trust in someone who employs such underhanded methods. I made my stance clear, pointing out his obvious financial motivations. Despite my firm rejections, the requests kept coming. Then my father-in-law intervened, his voice full of condescension, questioning whether I was neglecting my responsibilities as a daughter-in-law by not helping his wife more. He couldn't believe I would refuse, attributing my stance to personal debts I had supposedly accrued. I stood my ground, and in response, he raised his voice so much it was painful to listen. He accused me of being cruel, neglecting my mother-in-law during her time of need, and unfairly blaming her for my issues. He threatened to make me regret my decisions, calling me a wicked woman. After ending that distressing call, still resolute, I saved the audio recording and discussed it with my lawyer. It turned out that my father-in-law's aggressive words were legally considered threats. With this recorded proof, I warned Terry that I was prepared to take legal action unless he agreed to the divorce terms. Faced with no other options, he finally agreed, albeit reluctantly. This marked my liberation from the oppressive grasp of his family. Following the divorce, Terry's professional reputation took a hit. His colleagues' trust waned, and he faced diminished responsibilities at work. Financial strains forced him to sell his family home at a significantly lower price. Now, he lives in a small apartment with his parents, dealing with a reduced income and the pressure of supporting his family. Additionally, he is required to pay me alimony. I learned about the extent of Terry's difficulties through Bruce, who stayed in touch as a trusted confidant. When I was exploring new career opportunities, I found a chance to use the customer service skills I'd developed at a clothing store. Bruce, who had recently moved to the HR department of a real estate firm, suggested I apply for a role that demanded strong communication skills. After giving it some thought and discussing the potential with Bruce, I decided to accept the job offer and joined the real estate company. During this time of transition, Bruce and I continued to grow closer, and our friendship eventually turned into something more. After a year of dating, we decided to get married, and I became the partner of someone who would one day become the president of the company. It was an unexpected twist of fate that Terry, who had once wrongly accused us of infidelity, would see us fall in love and marry. Now, with the support of my new family, including my in-laws, I am excited to build a beautiful future with Bruce. We look forward to creating many happy memories together, backed by the love and support of those around us.